How was it that it took 3 years to put this CD together?
Because we started in September 1989, and by about November 89 we realised that things weren't going too well. Mainly logistical things like studios that we were being given weren't right. Mainly we hadn't any equipment, and we've been promised like money for equipment, blah blah blah. Never came through due to various financial upheavals within the record label, and so we went into sort of protection mode, which meant that we basically decided for our own peace of mind that we would only work on the music when we felt like it. And it was a kind of a, basically the choice was we could have rushed the album off, finished it by Christmas and had it out by March of 1990, but what would have happened was we wouldn't be able to stand by the record. And like 10 years from now, we could have said, we never had the right guitars and all this, but it's a weak excuse. In the end, all that people care about is whether the record's good, not why it's, why you didn't, whatever. Like it's of interest to people that it took a long time, but ultimately it's not as important as the content of the record. So we just took our time, and we only worked when we felt like it. Mm-hmm. And during the period during 1990, we didn't do an awful lot of work on the actual album as a whole, mainly because we were working on the Glider EP and the Tremolo EP. That's what we mostly worked on then.
The Glider and the what?
The Glider EP
mm-hmm.
and the Tremolo EP.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we mostly did then.
Okay. You say when you go into a protection mode, you wanted to just make the music you guys could be proud of.
Yeah, yeah, but what I mean by that is like sometimes when things are going badly, you find that you're not really thinking straight. So you just think, well, I could just do this and not feel like I've got my whole judgment, or you can just say I won't do it today and I'll do nothing. Mm-hmm. Things are going really badly. The studio's terrible. The people in the studio are terrible. I won't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why. We also happen to coincide making our album with a studio crisis in Britain. It's been a real crisis, especially amongst the mid-range studios, which is the studios we used. And so all in all, it was like quite a lot of bad atmosphere and things around the beginning of making the album. So we just decided we'll make it in our own good time, and we'll stand by it that way. Mm-hmm. And we'll only record when things are going well. Mm-hmm. And because of that, there was huge gaps.
I see. Overall, you guys don't have you're not very prolific. You sort of take your time and make what you want to make. And maybe that's what holds you back, I guess, schedule-wise.
Yeah,
that's always been the case, right?
Well, sort of, yeah. I mean, we could easily appear prolific if we wanted to, but just by not putting a lot of work into EPs, we could have had like. If we wanted to, we could have had like 2 albums out during this period, because as far as we're concerned, the quality of the music on our EPs is generally speaking like it really stands up for itself a lot more than like a lot of bands. They release 12-inch records, but it's only one good song and 3 like a live version of a song and an acoustic version, and it isn't like 3-4 whole songs. It's not 4 whole songs. It's become a trend now, but I think, it's not so much for me to say, but I think that with our EPs, most people who like the band generally find that they find that the quality of the EP is whole. It's not an inferior product. It's the 2 like the Tremolo EP and the Glider EP are all that material together, bar the 2 songs that are on the album, are just as strong as anything on the album. It's not an inferior medium.
I see, yeah.
And so in a way, for us, as far as we're concerned, we've put out lots of music,
Yeah.
whether it be in the kind of tradition, or the way it's generally perceived. Albums is the release, and everything else is a side issue. For us, an EP is an important release.
I see.
So as far as we're concerned, we've released 3 records in the past.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of other pop acts will put out a new record a year. It seems to be kind of almost the norm. Does your lack of output in that respect hold you back, like financially? Does it
Yeah.
place a burden on you?
Extremely. Because we're like, I mean, if we were just thought about it from the money point of view, it's quite suicidal the way we work, because the large recording budgets and the huge gaps between releases mean that basically there's no income coming into the band. And ideally we would like to be able to put records out more frequently, and the only way we can possibly do that is to basically control our situation in the sense that we're not ever put in a situation again where we feel like we're trying to make a record under terrible circumstances. I mean, for us the plan is to actually build our own studio, and with that kind of environment we should be able to work faster. You know, that's the idea, that's the plan.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, the way we've worked in the past 3 years has been it's been kind of painful, really, to tell the truth, and it's been quite, not in a kind of like, oh, we feel sorry for ourselves sort of way, just in a sort of, it did take a lot of kind of like determination to not stray off the idea and go, oh, what the hell, I've been sick of doing this album for so long, I'm just going to finish it and get it out, and, you know, to always constantly just kind of go, yes, but, you know, you have to be true to the songs, to the original ideas, because when I think of, see, what happens with the songs is that they kind of, because I don't really think in musical terms very much, so it's mostly just a kind of a textured picture thing, not really colour either, just a thing where parts in the music have, they've got their own place. And like when a song, the bare bones of a song is there, I've all got a mental picture of other parts, and if I'm recording and I feel like I'm tired, but if I still have the other parts not filled in or haven't tried to attempt to fill them in, I can't let that down. I can't kind of let the song down by doing that, and that can be a bit difficult sometimes, and that's why sometimes I wouldn't do anything for 3 to 4 days on end, go into the studio each day and my brain wouldn't work. So I refuse to just put down any old rubbish instead. I mean, it's totally unbusinesslike, unfortunately, you know, for us and creation. But the end result is that at least we can stick by what we've done. That's the important thing.
So I guess you would think of yourself more as a creator of art as opposed to like a pop musician then?
Well, kind of, not really, because it's more of a kind of. Maybe it's an obsessive sort of determination thing. Like I do feel more like we're creating pop music as opposed to art, really. But it's expressive. I feel it is pop music, personally, for me. If it was just art and it was purely just for expression, it would be probably different, you know. But it's blurred. It's completely blurred. I'm thinking in terms of pop, but it's free. We've got the complete freedom to do anything within that area. Some people, but to think of it just as art would be wrong, because I mean, the fact that we exist, a band who plays guitars and drums and stuff in this day and age, is kind of an anachronism, and why we do what we do is for reasons that probably won't exist in 10 years' time. We're from another era in a sense, you know. I grew up in this sort of 70s, and that's something that, well, why we're doing what we're doing is unclear, really, you know. But we like it, and we see it like pop music.
Yeah.
But we can't. I can think of things, you know. I can think of ideas to do, and it seems a shame just to waste potential to sort of think, you know, if you think of an idea, to just like, oh well, you shouldn't do it because it's not pop, or it's not commercial, or it'll confuse people.
He saw your show the other night at the club Cheetah in Kawasaki, and whereas your stuff on vinyl was a lot more melodious, you felt that the presentation live was a bit more on the noisy side, almost shockingly so. 質問の後半は何だっけ？
いや、いつもああいうのを展開してるのかっていうのと、でまあ、
Is that usually the case with you guys live, and why would you consciously sort of defy the melodious nature of the music originally?
The melodies are still there, they're just harder to sort of comprehend. But the main thing is the live environment, especially at the moment. Like, it's a bit different in England. We've got a little more control, a lot bigger PA systems and stuff. But touring in clubs and things, it's sometimes what we do is a bit overcomplicated. And so what tends to happen is, instead of to try and just replicate the record in that environment, it'd be very I don't know what the right word is, but it'd be boring in a sort of way. And what we mostly feel like after doing the sound checks with loads of trouble and hassle and equipment not working properly, and we've got a lot of problems like with power supplies, to a lot of the equipment, and we're getting huge hums and stuff, and projectors are breaking down, and the whole thing. All you can do, to be honest, for us in those situations, is just kind of it's kind of the frustration and the energy side that comes out. It isn't something I would see us doing forever, just for the hell of it. It's more of a thing. It suits that environment. It's the only thing that works under those conditions, under the conditions of things not going right, and it's that you still put something across to people. It's not a weak version of the album or a sort of a pale version of the album or less kind of produced a perfect version. It's different. It's more. There is a lot of aggression because touring in general is kind of tiring and frustrating. The reasons why we do things in the studio on a record, most of them don't exist when we tour. And that can be annoying for people. They can kind of be disappointed because it's like that things about us they really like it just don't exist sometimes live, and it's something that hopefully it's part of the process of tying the whole thing into one whole thing. But I don't know if we might ever achieve that. I'm not sure. But the important thing is just to. It's a feel thing. I know it's hard to explain, really. But ultimately, in the environment that we play in at the moment, doing what we do feels best. Whether it's exactly what people want, I'm not sure. Probably not. But the main thing is that we can come out of it feeling not totally frustrated. Like if we're just trying to create the record, and we had all these problems and nothing sounded right, because a lot of what we do is a very fine balance. There's a fine balance between it working and not working, and sometimes in a live environment you haven't got that fine balance at all. It's very ham-fisted really compared to what you can do with the record.
I see.
And it's difficult. Also, I can't control the context and how the instruments are presented exactly because I'm not out front mixing it. So the important thing is just to put across an attitude.
I see.
And just give people something to remember, really, and give them a feeling of some sort. At least affect people in some way.
I see. The basic nature of the music, it seems to be rather than something very aggressive. It's more introspective. Just constantly introspective, always sort of turning back into yourselves. Is that a apt observation, I think? Does that apply to the band?
I suppose. I don't know, really. It depends. Because a lot of it is unconscious. It isn't a conscious effort to create that feeling. It just comes out that way. But sometimes it feels like when I'm playing parts in the studio, they might feel kind of aggressive at the time, or kind of attacking. But by the time I realise the whole idea, lots of things offset that feeling, and you get an overall sense of something else. And it's like lots of moods within something. So maybe that's why people feel it's introspective, because they can't lock on to an exact mood or an exact clear feeling. So they feel that by the term introspective, that's often it's sort of it's associated with a kind of a lack of total understanding of what's going on. Sometimes, I suppose when something's seen as being like that, it's somehow going into itself, which people on the outside aren't quite sure where it's starting or going. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I suppose that can be the effect. But a lot of it isn't conscious. Like I'm often sort of occasionally surprised at how songs turn out. They have the picture, but I didn't realise that the picture would sound that way. I thought it would sound something like something else. I sometimes have an idea of what a song will be, and it's there, the bits and the parts, and then by the time it's finished, I'm listening to it, and it's what I thought what I wanted to do, but it doesn't sound at all like I expected. Sometimes it's better, and sometimes it's not worse, but sometimes occasionally along the way I get a preconceived idea about how the song might turn out, and by the time I realise the whole thing, it's not like that at all.
Well, おそらくその音楽につかみど Now, it seems like, your music, the music of some of the bands that he refers to as house, which may not be an accurate way of describing them, but I guess it just means sort of the wave of psychedelic, the bands that perform sort of psychedelic music coming out of the UK now. Why is there this emphasis on creating this sort of a psychedelic trip for the listener? What's accounted for that?
I don't know. I mean, well, it depends. House music in it might be important to sort of establish how the term house. I mean, just in case. But house music as in like electronic house music. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was a little bit caught up on. What he was referring to. House っていうと例えば具体的にどういうバンドのこと言って？
Oh, that kind of house music. Well, I mean, for example, 808 State. Where that comes from is just that. It started off not exactly trippy from America, the house music from America.
Yeah, that stuff in America is completely different.
Yeah.
It's like
inner city, and all the sort of Chicago stuff, And but I think what happens is when people take like a drug like ecstasy, right, and had that music blasting out like over massive speakers in small clubs, and it created a whole feeling that it did take people somewhere, it took people on another. It was this kind of a modern psychedelic experience, and I think and then the music began to reflect that, and people started making the music sounding that way, and in a sense you got a sort of modern psychedelic music with house music more than rock music, really. And bands like us hear music like that. And I've been to clubs, and I've been a bit out of my head in clubs, and it's just been very affecting. It's been a huge, strong effect. Something that wipes away most rock gig experiences. It's so powerful and loud. And you basically, when something affects you, it just comes out in your music. You just, and often the repetitiveness. It's just that. It helps. It just helps get you find yourself in a state of mind that doesn't. Well, you don't have to be on drugs to really appreciate that feeling. If you can create it with the sound of the music. So that's an important thing. I mean, with our music, actually, like a drug like acid, LSD, is pretty unbeneficial to listen to it with that drug. I mean, people have thought of taking it thinking that it'll enhance the listening of the music, and it's actually destroyed it completely. It's put them in they've had bad trips and things because it's too much, music that suits that is more basic music, and it's in a sense the original music which wasn't druggy mixed in with drugs, it would work, and then when you make the music sound druggy to reflect that feeling, you don't need the drugs as much anymore, and that's why it's kind of an oral stimulus, that helps people, puts them in a state of mind, without having to actually take dangerous chemicals, So
it's taking the music to its next logical step, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's creating things with music that you might have felt otherwise.
Getting back to the original question, though, why do you think that the times of why has that become a sign of the times? Though, why do the times call for that sort of music? Is there some larger picture that?
Well, I know from my point of view anyway. I mean.
Oh, actually, just before you say, you did answer that a second ago. You said like that this type of music can give people something that rock could not.
Yeah.
The experience was much more powerful.
Yeah.
So maybe that actually answered it.
Yeah.
I forgot to say that to him.
Oh.
In spite of the somewhat limited output of your band, you've had a wealth of influence on the younger so-called guitar bands. What's struck the common chord, do you think? What have accounted for that?
I'm not too sure, but I mean, I don't know really. I mean, I think we've just always. I mean, I think it helps because of the fact that when we, like I say, we haven't released that many records and stuff, but whenever we do release a record, it kind of it affects people. They kind of, and I don't know if it'll always be like that, but it has been for a while. Like, it kind of, when people think they understand us, then they find they can't understand. They realise that they haven't really understood us, and then what they begin to realise is that they maybe never will, because it's a constantly changing thing. And from the point of view of influencing bands and stuff, I think because we were around for quite a while and stuff, that I mean, we've done it, you know, before they did, and I think we've showed that it can be done, and I think it inspires people. They go, "Oh, yes, it could be done like that," you know. The idea of being experimental, as experimental as the most avant-garde person, you know, the most avant-garde people in whatever form of music. You take their most experimental thing, and like we can do things that are just as experimental as that, but we can also do things that are just as poppy and dinky, sort of, and light as the most poppy things. We've got that whole freedom. I think that inspired people. That kind of freed people up a bit. I mean, not that we invented it, but we just kind of, we definitely pursued it. You know, helped, and that's not, you know, we didn't invent anything. We just kind of maybe sometimes coining something, or maybe just like putting it in brackets or something, but not exactly inventing it.
Right. Tom, list the names of several bands that have publicly cited your band as a major influence. You'd like you to give like a brief summation of each band. The first one being Ride.
Well, I don't know. When I first heard them, they seemed really fresh. That was their main characteristic, was a freshness. They also seemed to be, I don't know. It was mainly the main thing that for me to characterise Ride was a freshness. That was the main thing. And with their album, that for me was in a way for me was them being introspective from my point of view. You know, not from their point of view, but from my point of view. It wasn't so fresh, but it wasn't worse. It wasn't stale. It was just it was them kind of working on maturing, whether it may be a bit too fast, possibly. Yeah.
Sure.
But it, yeah.
Okay, good enough. Three.
ですね。ペールセインツ。
Pale Saints.
I don't know. I mean, they've got their own thing. Then, you know, I like them, but I'm not a big fan or anything. I think they're okay. You know, I think they've got an individual attitude towards. You know, they're not trying to necessarily. I really love the record Kinky Love, basically. Oh, that was great. It's Kinky Love. You know that? Kinky Love? I thought that was great. I thought, because there's an element of the Pale Saints that they didn't put across, which is that they have the members of the band have quite a sort of unserious attitude, a very sort of slightly, they can be very, what's the word? Not cheeky, but
Ironic.
disrespectful,
Oh,
in a kind
irreverent.
of irreverent. Yeah, they're very irreverent as people, and I thought that kind of captured that in a way that sometimes their music doesn't. You know,
じゃあラッシュ
Lush, yeah. Well, Lush. I've known Emma for years. Emma from Lush, and Mickey.
ラッシュのエマとミッキーはもう
I've known them for a long time.
昔から僕友達で
And Emma, I've seen Emma write songs before we even were on Creation that were like Lush style of songs, and I know that Lush get a lot of their melodies and musical ideas come from not from us. It comes from something else. I think, but where we inspired Lush was they used to go to our gigs all the time. Always, Lush would be at our gigs, and I think we inspired them to sort of to really kind of pursue like just the idea of what that you can just do it. I don't think we influenced them as much as people might imagine. I think a lot of what the essence of what Lush are was there before, before we made our first record on Creation. But I think we just inspired them from the point of view of they could play loud guitars and have nice melodies and stuff. That element, but not the essence of the band. I think is quite unique,
There seem to be a lot of performers coming out with a message of sort of love and peace. Lenny Kravitz and the
Delight.
Or some of the Manchester bands he notes as well. Do you have have you formed an opinion about these bands, or is it something you've noticed at all?
I don't know really. I mean, it depends. Which Manchester bands?
Manchester バンドの中でなんか割と安易に a vague love and peace.
Yeah, but I think from Candy Flip's point of view, they were going for a pop market mainly. But the guys in the band have got really good ideas, musical ideas. But a lot of the sort of stuff was a bit kind of, they're appealing to a teeny pop audience. I don't think it was. I think the bands themselves would go for much more aggressive, heavy music on their own. It's just that they were a pop band at that point. But I think bands like Lenny Kravitz and stuff, I mean, I think he's very much, he's into some sort of like serious musician trip. But he's good. I mean, he's pretty good, guy, like songwriter and performer and all that. But I don't know. To me, he doesn't. I don't know. Maybe to me, sometimes I think he's a bit obsessed with the whole idea of what Lenny Kravitz is, as opposed to. It doesn't seem to reflect the world that much to me, anyway. I think the world's a lot more confused. The world's a lot more of an empty space at the moment, waiting to be filled in. Everyone's waiting, to figure out what everyone thought they knew what was what. And nowadays, nobody knows what's what. Anything could topple. The CIA could be gone. You know what I mean? In 2 or 3 years, the way things are going, the KGB is gone. I mean, it's the concept of what the world is and the world order has just changed. In this day and age, true love and peace is vital, but it's an abstract concept. There's a lot of practical things in the meantime that there's some serious wars going on.
It shouldn't be just sloganeering.
It's kind of it harks too much back to the sort of very naive 60s, where they thought, I mean, they had a lot of extremely relevant things to say, and the whole anti-Vietnam stance was brilliant, but just like it's an idealized sort of romanticized version of something.
Romanticism, yeah. You briefly explain the concept behind the title of the CD.
Mainly, the main concept, if there's any concept, is mainly it's a title where a lot of people will make up their own idea of what it's supposed to mean. And I like that. I've got a love-hate relationship with words and statements. Well, not love-hate statements. I don't like statements. Full stop. Well, I like statements as a thing, but not with words, because I don't get on with words that well. So the point being that I like to manipulate words and make them invisible, and even though they're there it is, but in some way that it's not meaningless, it's meaningful, but in a way that people will put their own meaning to it. It's often like sometimes with it in the same way that a classic love song, okay, is it's extremely meaningful. But if you just keep it at, I love you because you are a great baby, you know, everyone's going to have their own idea exactly due to their own experience in life to what that means, as opposed to something a bit more concrete, you know, something that's extremely, sometimes the verges on meaningless is all extremely meaningful to a lot of people, and that's why I like those kind of things.
Open space there.
Yeah. But it's not just meaningless, but like calling it some gobbledygook word.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that gives people the sort of the basic materials to sort of let their imagination start going flying. I mean, that's the whole point of a lot of what we do.
The song "Soon" was kind of a turning point for the band. He notes.
Sort of, but continue.
Okay. Well, the rest of the question was. It was a turning point, I guess, stylistically and financially in terms of sales. I guess it did rather well or something.
Yeah, it did much better.
I guess does that sort of represent your first experience with house?
No. From a chronological point of view, the first thing we did was a free single with "Isn't Anything." It was a free 7-inch single.
Is it anything?
Isn't Anything.
Oh, Isn't Anything.
Which was our first album on Creation, and it was a 7-inch single, and you know, "Justify My Love" by Madonna. Well, it was that exact thing. You can play our thing and hers at the same time, and they merge in.
Is that right?
Yeah, because we use the same Public Enemy sample.
Oh, I see.
And but the bizarre thing is, like, they put all this wavy music over it, and we had done 3 years previous to her put the exact same wavy music over it, and it was like this soft sort of atmospheric music, but that's in the same key as well, bizarrely enough.
Getting back to Lenny Kravitz again. Yeah.
Well, basically, while we were waiting for somebody to sort of say whose idea it was, and then we were going to go, well, actually, if you want to get into ideas, it was done 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, but the point is anyway that we did that's seen as a dance track of sorts in it, and we've done that in 1988. So and Soon was released in 1990, so that's 2 years previous to Soon. We had done something that was very, very could be danced to in a club.
I see. Yeah.
And even songs like Slow, you know Slow?
Slow.
Off the Made Realize EP. It's the first EP on Creation.
Made Realize?
You Made Me Realize.
You Made Me Realize. EP があるんだけど。
あ、それはすみません、聞いてないですか。
Well, if you heard that record, a lot of the rhythms and feel of that was influenced by mixture, reggae and hip hop.
I see.
And hip hop is where our real first interest in dance music came, you know, because it was so radically different. So for us, Soon was just a logical sort of. Didn't seem like any big change whatsoever. We had a song called "Soft as Snow" on Isn't Anything album, the first track on the album. It's very has sort of, if you think about it in terms of it's influenced by dance music, you know, you can see the pattern all the way through. And for us, Soon is just another part of this thing. As regards sales, I think it's just a mixture of, in a sense, ultimately a market was created that didn't exist. And in our absence, a market got created, and all of a sudden we released records and are selling literally 3 or 4 times as many copies. You know, just because of the fact that there's a new market out there. And I mean, it helps. If it was bad music, we wouldn't, you know. But the fact is, it's there, it's available to us now. The market that just didn't exist.
I see. Yeah.